We are live.
Great. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another Educator Innovator Hangout on air. I'm one of your hosts for this Hangout. I'm Annalise Wunderlich. I'm the Youth Participation Manager at KQED. And I am also a media maker myself and a journalist. And I'm joined here with my colleague, Matthew Green. Want to say hi?
Hi, everybody. I'm Matthew. I run the news education program here at KQED.
Great, and we're really thrilled to be hosting this conversation with some great students and teachers and some of our partners at the Bay Area Video Coalition who are also co-hosting this first Media Make that's part of the Letters to the Next President 2.0 initiative. So today is March 22nd, 2016, and we are hosting a conversation about how to foster the development and discussion of diverse political views in your classroom and how to use video as a platform and a teaching tool for getting students to share their views about the election and politics in general. So this conversation is going to be the first of a series of Media Makes and webinars that go with each Media Make featured Educator Innovator over the next few months. These are hands-on hangouts and they're part of the National Writing Project and KQED's Letters to the Next President 2.0 project. And this project is all about engaging young people around the country, ages 13 to 18, as they research, write, and make media to voice their opinions about issues that really matter to them that are part of the election that's coming up. So I just wanted to start off by introducing everybody else who's on the Hangout. Why don't we start with our co-hosts of the Media Make over at the Bay Area Video Coalition. Lauren, do you want to kick off our intros?
You want to intro us?
Hi, I'm Lauren, and I am the Youth Development Manager here at the Bay Area Video Coalition. Thank you so much for inviting us. We have two students from our Emerging Media Makers program. These are our young leaders who are working in the community this year to make media about causes and issues that they care about. So thank you for inviting us, and students can introduce themselves.
My name's Alex. I'm part of BAVC. I'm doing video production. The issue I'm covering on is military.
Thanks, Alex.
I'm Jindy. I'm part of the video production track as well. I actually have not chosen the topic yet.
Cool. Thanks so much for joining us, you guys. And we're really excited. We've been working at KQED with BAVC on creating some great short videos as part of this Media Make. So we're really excited to have them join, and they have a lot of expertise at BAVC around video production and community and civic engagement. So thanks for joining us. And then we also have some great teachers on the Hangout. Why don't we start with Bob? Can you introduce yourself and your student?
Hi, my name is Bob Kelly, and I teach at Minarets High School, which is up near Yosemite. I have a couple of students who both produced videos before the end of the year, Bailey Samper and Jacob Vila. And I'll let them, Bailey first and then Jacob, introduce themselves. Go ahead, Bailey.
Okay, sorry, I decided to unmute myself. Hello everyone, my name is Bailey Samper. I am a senior at Minarets High School. Mr. Kelly has been my AP US History teacher and my AP Econ and Gov teacher. And I made my video regarding abortion. Thank you, I'm excited to be here.
Jacob there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Jacob Vila, Minarets senior, and I did my video on wealth inequality. And Mr. Kelly's been my econ and government teacher for this year. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for joining us, Jacob and Bailey. And then I also wanted to hand it over to Julie. and Vida.
Hi, my name is Julie Phelan. I teach 11th and 12th grade English at Sacred Heart Cathedral Preparatory in downtown San Francisco. Very excited to be here. I'm a big fan of KQED. I love that this whole project is really engaging students and giving them an opportunity to connect with other students outside of our school and our classroom, which is really critical. I have one of my wonderful students here, Vida. She's going to introduce herself and thank you. Go ahead, Vida.
Hi, my name is Vida. I'm Miss Phelan's 11th grade student. I'm in her AP Language and Composition class, and I also submitted my backyard campaign video. My group did the topic of immigration, and I was the campaign header, so I made the video and everything. And thank you so much for being here with me today and for this opportunity.
The first attempt that we put out there called My Backyard video campaign that Vida, Jacob, and Bailey participated in, and just kind of what the impetus was for KQED to ask young people to create short videos around the election. So Matthew, can you just tell us what it was and why you did it?
Sure. First off, it's great to see some of the students that we saw in videos. It's like you guys are celebrities now. So thanks for, especially to you guys for being here. So the whole point of this was to really get students to think about some of the big issues that are being talked about a lot on the campaign trail, and to kind of think about how they're influenced by them in their own lives. We hear, we're in the thick of campaign season. We hear lots of these issues tossed around, and they can sometimes seem a bit meaningless because they're talked about on this very sort of broad level. And we particularly wanted to hear youth voices because there are enough youth voices, and most youth can't vote. 18 and over, and to really kind of get a sense of what issues were most were affecting you guys the most in your own communities, and what issues were you most interested in, most concerned about. So this seemed like a really good opportunity to do that and to really hear to hear your voices, and that's what came through.
Yeah, so maybe we can just hear directly from Vida, Jacob, and Bailey about what was going through your mind when you first heard from your teachers about the assignment, and then, what was it like to actually make your video? Start with you.
Yeah, okay, so this assignment was actually given to our class as a ProPoint assignment. So, like most high school seniors, I put it off to the last minute. So actually, it was actually really interesting to me to get kind of my own perspective on abortion, because from both sides, Republicans and Democrats, you hear a lot of contradicting ideas. So I actually think just getting straight to the point and kind of cutting out all the extra crap and just focusing on what my opinion is and perspective is, I found that to be really beneficial. So I know in my video, I tried to represent both sides of abortion, talking about the pros and the cons, just to kind of give like a fundamental understanding of what abortion is and how it affects the U.S.
Thanks, Bailey. Yeah. Go for it, Jacob.
Okay, so when I first heard about the project, again, as Bailey said, it was a ProPoint project or extra credit, and I was really excited because I'm very involved, or I consider myself to be very politically aware. And again, as I said earlier, I talked about wealth inequality, and poverty and the poverty rates in America today. And basically what I wanted to do with my video is just pretty straightforward and simple, and just kind of talked, from my heart, and just tried to express the way I feel about poverty and wealth inequality in America.
You guys did a great job with both of those themes. Did you? Yesterday we posted all the videos, so you can see all your videos on the KQED site now. If you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and I think that one of the pieces of feedback we got from our newsroom at KQED when we shared with them your videos was just how articulate and thoughtful you guys were about issues, and how refreshing it was to hear straight from young folks without any filter, from adults about what they think young people are thinking about this election, and just how important it is to create more opportunities to hear straight from you guys about what you think about what's happening in the election. Vita, did you want to add some perspective from your side?
Yeah, thanks. So our video was about immigration, and instead of saying that immigration should be talked about more, we addressed how stereotypes should be addressed also, and how there's commonly misconceptions about immigrants being lazy or them not attempting to learn English. And so in our video, we talked about those stereotypes and then the actual reality. And we brought in statistics saying, like, California is home to like 10 million immigrants, and how it's very real in our lives. And my group mates, all of us have family who are immigrants and are really involved in the immigrant culture. And like I have two mothers, and one of them is an immigrant, and ironically the other one is an immigration lawyer. So I'm very in the world of immigration, and it's a topic that's really important to me. Okay,
and then I wanted to hear from our partners at BAVC, the emerging media maker.
Jeez. Go ahead.
Focused on how to tell stories through media, the local context.
At least you're kind of cutting out.
Okay. Let's see. Is my audio cutting out too?
It was. It sounds a little better now.
Okay, maybe I will try not to move. Okay. Let me see. I will try lowering my bandwidth just one more here. Okay, does my audio sound a little more clear?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to hear straight from you guys at BAVC, because you are even in a more in-depth program to learn about video making and video production. If you guys could talk a little bit about how you're approaching connecting these big national issues to what's happening in your own lives, in your own communities.
Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about how you chose the topic of the military, and then how your interview went, how you chose somebody to interview?
Well, I decided to pick the issue on military because there's a lot of issues surrounding the military. I personally wasn't affected, but I knew someone who was affected by it, which was my teacher. His name is Eddie. He joined the Air Force a decade ago. I spoke to him on the phone, and he was just telling me these stories about his experience in the Air Force and how it was a pretty negative impact on his life. And I had an interview with him, a sit-down interview, and he kind of told me his story about why he joined the Air Force and why he did all this, and how it impacted him quite negatively, and he's learned a lot from it, and he doesn't support the military in general. He advises like people my age to avoid it, and yeah.
So what's some of the, how are you going to approach telling a personal story, and what do you guys think that will do to open up awareness and conversation around that issue or the issues that you're focusing on?
Just from his perspective, because he shared, from his perspective, because he was in the Air Force.
When you were listening to him, Alex, were there things that he was saying that you felt like resonated with you emotionally?
There was, because at a point in my life, I wanted to join the military, and I talked to my teacher, and he was explaining to me how the military is it's serious, and it could leave it could leave an impact in your life, and that stuck to me because what he said, and his experience through it. So that's why I kind of related to the issue, because I myself wanted to join the military, because I was at a point in my life where I didn't know what my choice was.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. And I think it can be difficult sometimes for students to open up and find those personal connections and share with a big audience. So I'm wondering if this is for anybody really on the Hangout to talk about how you approach that. So for the teachers, I can imagine it's difficult to have that conversation sometimes with your students, especially when politics are involved and it's a contentious election with a lot of controversies in the in the political scene. And how do you approach a project like this that asks students to voice their opinions? Bob, please jump in.
What we always try to do as much as possible is help the students get background so that they have a fully rounded understanding of what it is they're trying to talk about, and then let them go from there for their perspective. And in fact, it was funny, I was just looking back at the assignment that especially Jacob did, because poverty wasn't one of the 9 issues that we had in that right. He took that and ran with it himself, which is something that we had studied earlier. And he did a great job of it. And then Bailey didn't really come down on one side or another. She said, look, these are what I think are the issues. And so the idea, I think, is most fundamental is to try to get a really, really good, solid background, and then just go from your own experiences and your own understandings of the world.
Yeah, and Bob, when you have these discussions in class, how do you navigate the potential for conflict or even parents getting concerned, that there's a political conversation happening in school? Do you have any tips for educators around how to approach controversy?
When I first started at this school, I was much more hesitant to get involved, but this is my 5th year there now. And I guess, for lack of a better term, I've kind of proven myself in trying to be balanced. And I really go out of my way to talk to all the students about whatever it is that they're interested and how they understand it. And I try to explain very clearly to them that I don't want to tell them what to say, but I want them to learn how to say it better, more clearly. And so I try to really strike that neutral balance. And then every so often, I'll make it very clear to them when I'm speaking from my own perspective, as opposed to as the teacher in the room. And so I try to create an atmosphere that allows students pretty much say what they want to say.
Julie, I know you have some thoughts on that too. Can you jump in?
Yes. Because I teach at a religious school, there are restrictions that we have. But we try, in my classrooms, I try to articulate to students that it is something that you're going to be stating public. You don't want to put anything out there that would be inappropriate, but you still have a voice. So let's find what that voice is. I usually start with that first and foremost. So even if it might be uncomfortable or controversial, I want the students to identify it for themselves. We have an ethics class at our school also that really does deal with more religious doctrine. I avoid that card in my classroom because I'm not there to make any judgments, but to get students to qualify their view and support it with facts and information. That's one of the key components for AP Language and Composition. But we do have a range of beliefs in the classroom, and I do have to be mindful of that in my position as a teacher in the San Francisco Archdiocesan community. I have to walk a very fine line, but I don't want that ever to prevent students from articulating something that's really critical, and I want them to be able to find a voice that they can publicly reflect and express. So I think Vita could probably talk a little bit more about that as well. But that's been one of the great parts of this whole process for KQED. And I did go to our administration. Ironically, we have had ethics classes in the past and social justice classes at our school that have tweeted. So a lot of kids already had Twitter accounts, and they were like, no, that's fine. We want these kids to be engaged in the community. So that's
great. Thanks, Julie. And Lauren, I know that you've got some thoughts too.
So I just first would like to say I really admire what KQED is doing in terms of getting, youth and schools and stuff involved in, what's going on out there. I'm 24, so I haven't been in high school for a few years, but I can say that I'm from Georgia, and I've never witnessed an opportunity where instructors and stuff want to hear our stories and want to see how we feel on things. So I can say that initially I was a little bit unaware of, some of the things that are going on, I would be aware of them, but not knowing how to speak on them, or when the right time or how to speak on them, So since being out on my own and being a part of real life, it's a little bit easier to understand, what's happening around us. And just to be able to be a part of, this opportunity to put our voices out there, and we are the next generation. This election matters. All of the students that are here, they're all juniors, seniors. So this is happening now, and it's affecting us.
Thank you for that perspective. And I wanted to put it out there to all the learners. I know that it can be scary to put yourself out in the public in a big way, and I'm just wondering how you guys felt about making these videos and then putting them out there. To any advice you might have for other students who might be a little intimidated by that. So this is really for anybody who's made a video or is in the process of making one.
For me, I really like putting myself out there. I really enjoy public speaking, and I'm not really afraid to share my opinions. So I really viewed this opportunity as just a great medium to express, how I feel on current issues, which I don't feel like I often get to do as a 16-year-old high school student. So I really appreciated that. And then just to understand that, it's through KQED, I feel like I'm being heard, and I feel like there's not a lot of restriction on what I can say. I can say my genuine feelings in a really just open environment, and I love that. And I'm not, intimidated by all the people that potentially could see it. I think it's even more uplifting knowing that I could get my 16-year-old message across.
It's great, and it's really inspiring to be able to give you a platform for that. And I'm wondering what you guys, if you have had a chance to watch any of the other students' videos, either from your class or from other classes around the country, what that's like to kind of hear from other people in your generation, even if they have views that are really different from your own.
Annalise, can we jump back to the last question for a second?
Sure.
So I think one of the things that I want to make sure that young people know is that they don't have to be super outgoing and bold to get their media out there. You can be a soft-spoken person too, and being behind the camera is the way to get your voice out. Alex, can you talk a little bit about just like what it's like to be behind the camera instead of in front of the camera?
Well, it's a different experience because you're hearing it from a different point of view. Like when I'm behind the camera, I mean, I'm still seeing what's going on, but I get to see it in a, I guess, more raw form, other than a, yeah, from my point of view, that's the way I see it, in a raw form.
So I just, yeah, I think it's, you know, students' voices are really powerful, both in front of the camera and behind the camera, and you don't have to be the kind of person who's comfortable on a stage in order to make really great media and to share a really important message.
Yeah, I mean, we experienced that. We got a chance to do our own production about one of the youth production teams that participated in the My Backyard project. We were really honored to work with Madeline and Jacqueline and Zoram, who are 3 Oakland Tech high school students who also did a short video about immigration. And it was just really cool to see how each one of them got something out of that project. There was Madeline, who was sharing her story on camera about her mom being deported, but then Jacqueline and Zoram were kind of behind the scenes doing sound and camera and editing, and just each one of them felt like they really got to contribute their voice to that project, even though they weren't all on camera. So that's a great point. Speaking of production, though, I did want to jump in and ask the teachers on the group and the students, you know, some folks might be hesitant to participate in a project like this because they feel like they don't have the tech know-how or the production background, and especially for teachers, you know, if you don't have equipment or you've never really taught video production or editing, it might seem like a big ask, you know, to have your students do a project like this. So if any of you could just kind of comment on the value you see in using video in particular for a project like this, and how you overcome the tech hurdles.
One of the things that we used in my school was the idea that do it however you want to do it. Like Jacob used his phone and did it straight off his phone, and there wasn't any real production after that. Bailey's was much more production intense, but that didn't really matter as far as how I looked at it. It was basically how they presented their own understandings. So there's a huge range of people who can do it. It can be the people who are real tech savvy and those who just can do a real quick down and dirty, get your point out and make it clear. But the idea of being able to see somebody like Jacob standing there and saying, this is what I believe, I think makes the message that much more powerful, in that you actually see the person. It's not just a written word or some abstract understanding. It's a real person, and he's saying what he thinks about poverty.
So we had the opportunity to check out the original production from the Oakland Tech student, and also the one that KQED revised or whatever. Just from looking at the original footage, I think the young lady filmed it on her iPhone as well. And I mean, with both videos, they pretty much conveyed the same emotion. I could feel, her loss or her emotion or whatever in their situation, and experiencing her mom, going through that. So I think, it's definitely okay to use what you have. Like sometimes we do feel like we don't have the resources to film or photograph whatever we're trying to do, but I think that using what you have is okay. It says that you can use what you got and put your message out there, and it all conveys the same message.
Yeah, great. I wanted to get back to an earlier point that Bob raised around the importance of research, because I think it's one thing for students to just express their opinion, because we all have them, but it's another thing to do some research on the topic. So I wanted to ask the young people, like, where do you guys get your information to inform your opinions, especially around political stuff? Really, this is for the students. So, you get, you know, just be honest too. If you don't really usually do any research around things before having an opinion, that's fine too. But I'm just curious where you guys learn about what's going on in the political scene.
For me, I look at like the news and headlines and everything. So CNN is a great source, other news sources like that. But for this particular project, we looked at the Public Policy Institute of California. Like that's where we got our statistics about immigration. And yeah, but other than that, like headlines, seeing what's going on in politics, it's really good because you get that little like blurb and then you can read more. So it's always good to just stay informed.
Great. And Jacob, I know that you said that you are pretty politically active, and you definitely had a really strong point of view in your opinion about poverty in America, especially around things like opportunity for higher ed and public assistance programs. So if you could just talk about how you got invested in those topics and where you got your info.
For me, I watch a lot of debates. I keep, you know, I look at different articles, different everything online. Mr. Kelly, probably one of the best teachers I ever had. I mean, we talk about current events pretty much every class. That's how we started out, and then we have to write a blog. And I mean, so yeah, Mr. Kelly really kind of keeps everybody politically involved. And then, you know, on my own, my brother is a reporter for BuzzFeed Politics, and he's always been interested. My parents, my whole family really, and you know, I always discuss a lot of this kind of stuff with them, and yeah, and just stuff like that.
Cool. And how about for the teachers? You know, how do you structure the research that goes into projects like this? What are some tips that you might have for some other educators about how to get your students digging deeper into the topics?
I have a few things that I teach students. One is to read other news that's out there, as Vito was saying, but also to do advanced Google search, to really look at what's credible, to make sure just because something is out there doesn't mean it's real, and to try to drill deeper into the facts. Where did that poll come from? How many people were in that poll? Who were they? When was it done? How did they get the information? And really to try to vet, to understand what that means. You know, it's the BS detector. You know, how will that support what I have to say? But also in the counter argument, that was one thing that Bailey had mentioned in her conversation, was about how to look at both sides and really frame the argument, and then to take a position where it's clear what you believe, so that you can really counter and be articulate. So I think, you know, really quite honestly, students, to get them to read is always a challenge. So to keep reading and read more and ask more, and of course KQED and all PBS, New York Times, even the Washington Post, even the LA Times, and but not to cite uncredible sources mainly.
Matthew, maybe I don't know if you have any advice for teachers or students about some good sources that they can rely on when doing research for making their videos, and like how to ferret out what's a credible source versus a biased source?
Yeah, I mean, I think it obviously depends a lot on what you're looking at, but I know a lot of students use Wikipedia, and Wikipedia can actually be really valuable, and it's valuable for me too. I never use it as my source because it is, people just writing it, and there's lots of things that are factually incorrect on Wikipedia. But what I do use Wikipedia for often is the sources that are listed on Wikipedia. It's always important to kind of look at where that information is originally coming from. Wikipedia, I don't think, should be a source in and of itself, but the information on Wikipedia is usually fairly well sourced, and if you go to those original sources, it gives you a much better idea of how accurate the information is that you're looking at. I use a lot of government sources, not that the government is always accurate, but I use a lot of like census data, or .gov, a lot of Bureau of Labor Statistics data, things that aren't exactly the most fun to look at, but are official sources of information. I also, when I look at an organization that has data that they're putting out there or information, I try to get a sense of where that organization stands politically. Because obviously if they have a strong stance politically one way or the other, that tends to affect, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're lying, they're putting out incorrect data, but it means that they're selectively putting out what they want you to see. So they might only be telling you part of the story based on how they want that story to appear. So that's really important to know. It's really easy to find some primary sources from organizations and just assume that it's the basic truth, but then realize that there's a whole other side that you're not being exposed to because that organization has a specific political agenda. So really sort of vetting where the organizations are coming from, and trying to find what are called nonpartisan organizations. A lot of organizations say they're nonpartisan, and they actually are partisan. So sometimes it takes some detective work to really figure it out. Yeah, just basically looking for things that are providing information in a neutral way.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and Bob and Julie and even Lauren, if you guys have any other tips for how you would work with your students around that media literacy piece of understanding, what as Matthew was saying, the intended audience and political position of the news source that they're going to might be.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in because I'm glad that Matt brought up the issue of partisanship and the kind of credibility. And I think in terms of media literacy, that's really important for us to unpack with our young people, because as we're looking at what makes a source credible and what has historically made a source credible and where students can access historical information when, for hundreds of years, women and people of color were not considered credible sources. So in terms of what we want to include in a discussion about looking for credible sources, we also want to be critical of of the power structure that creates that credibility. And I think in terms of the media literacy piece, the audience, thinking about the story, audience, message, and style has been really valuable. But then looking at the work of other artists, of other media makers, and looking at what they've done and what has made them successful.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. That kind of helps me segue into, after you've done your, did you want to add something, JP? Any of you guys want to add something?
Thanks.
So I just wanted to segue into the production piece a little bit and just the creative process, because especially for the BAVC students, who are doing more kind of create a lot of editing and production in their projects. I wanted to talk a little bit about how you come up with your story ideas and pitch them, to get feedback on from others about how that story would resonate. And then also just how your creative process works in terms of doing a rough cut and getting feedback and then like revising, and just kind of the role that that revision plays in making a really amazing video.
I think the main thing is always just stemming from, you know, what your story is going to be, like what you're for, what you believe in, and what message you're trying to put out there. I think the hardest part is, you know, slimming it down, because obviously you want your videos to be 2 to 3 minutes or something like that. And you can easily kind of get off track, and you kind of have to figure out your direct, you know, point of where you're trying to go with it. So that is the hardest part. But once you get through that, it's you know pretty easy to go ahead and pitch and start to figure out how you want to shoot it at that point. And yeah, I guess it can be a little bit overwhelming, you know, in our sense, because we have to literally find that story and, you know, figure out if it's going to be us telling it, is it going to be a close family member or friend, or what questions did you ask to kind of get the message out there, and, you know, all of that.
How about you, Alex? How are you going to whittle down all that footage? How much footage do you have from your interview?
Well, I have around like 25 minutes worth of footage, and I think the most difficult part for me is trying to figure out how to make all 25 minutes worth of footage into the original time limit, which is 3 minutes. So, I mean, I have a pretty difficult job, but I'm gonna get through it because I feel like I have pretty good answers from my teacher, and yeah.
Yeah, when you have that like kind of mass of footage, I guess the hard part is picking out the little ones that are like, you know, like wow answers, or, you know, something like that, where you kind of really felt that person speaking. So yeah, but we'll get through it.
Yeah, and I think you guys point to the range of videos that are possible, because it sounds like from Bob and Jacob and Bailey and maybe even Vita that you guys didn't have as elaborate of a production process. You focus more in on, you know, what you wanted to say, and then you pretty much just used smartphone technology and not a lot of editing. So that's definitely one way to participate in this media make. However, even if you do it at that level, I imagine that there's still a lot of thinking and pre-work that goes into making your video before you turn on the record button. So Vita, I don't know if you want to share just how you approached what you were going to end up saying on camera.
I'd love to. Honestly, my group, it was like a collaboration, so we had all of us kind of work on the script and get our point of view across, but mainly I was the one that ended up recording it, editing it, and submitting it on my own. And it was very interesting because I have a $200 Chromebook that is breaking, and the pixels on the screen are kind of cracked, so it's not the most optimal device to record stuff on. So if you guys like watch my video, you can see there's like a couple points where it glitches out or like it freezes for a second. But I mean, I didn't really let that stop me, you know, try to get the video done and, you know, submitted. But it was kind of, you know, not optimal, because I feel like I could have had a better video if I had had a better device, or if I had, you know, had a camera or something. But I think any way that you submit it is good.
Yeah, how about you, Jacob? Did you put a lot of thought into it before you turned on the record button, or did you just kind of go with it?
For me, I just kind of spoke from the heart, and yeah, I mean, I've been in situations with you know, poverty and stuff, and my brother taught at a high school in pretty much the most ghetto place in Houston, and you know, I've been down there with him, and I've experienced all this stuff, and so all these experiences just kind of stick with and when we heard we do this video, I just registered and kind of just spoke from my heart, you know.
Yeah, and I think it really came through in your video, Jacob. Your video like really impressed a lot of us with just how authentic it was, and how you spoke with a lot of feeling. So I just want to encourage anybody who's thinking about doing this media make with your students, or students who want to do it, that there's a whole range. You can do it from the approach that Jacob and Vita took, where it was a little bit more just working with the tools that you have and speaking from the heart, or going more the way that the Oak Tech students or our friends at BAVC are taking, where they're putting more energy into the production process itself and spending more time editing and getting feedback from their peers before they submit their projects. It's definitely designed for people to just participate in any way that they can, and all of these stories are effective in different ways. We only have a few more minutes, and I did want to get to a question that I have about, I think there's a lot of people out there that think that students your guys' age, under the voting age, are too young to be involved in these kind of political discussions, and that you haven't been politically active in a way that legitimacy to have a voice in these in the political conversation. And I just want to get your thoughts on that. Like, what role do you think young people should play in the election if you're not able to vote? And what's the value of having your voice out there? Any of the students to chime in?
I sadly won't be able to vote in this election. I missed it by like 7 months, which really bummed me out. But I think that politically having a lot of knowledge about what's going on, I think it's really important for us to start thinking about where our vote would fall and get a stance on these big issues. Because if we don't learn it now, then when? It's like that saying, if not now, then when? It's a very valid point. We should start educating ourselves as early as possible and forming opinions that will and change over time. But it's important to start early and start researching, and then realize that it's a really great opportunity to participate in our government and get that say about what we think,
Okay. Yeah, go for it, guys.
So I don't think that that they're too young at all. Like I said before, I didn't have this opportunity to be involved and be aware and figuring out where I fall and what my beliefs or views are. I mean, of course, maybe in my own mind, but not this open and having such a cool panel of folks here to just share our views and feedback too. Like she said, it's never too late or too early. I think that you should totally get involved and figure out what you stand for. Obviously things change, whether it be in your own life or how things are going in the government or whatever. You should totally at least just be aware, if not, and just know what's going on around you.
Great. Jacob, did you want to add anything?
Sure. I was gonna say, I think that young people getting involved really kind of has like a new, a fresh set of eyes. I feel like a lot of people, as they get older, they get so set in their ways, and they think, oh well, I have to vote Democrat or I have to vote Republican. It has to be either one. And I just feel like young people, as they start to get involved, they can kind of make their own decisions and get more of an independent feel. And yeah.
How do you guys think about how the political conversation is going on so far from what you've seen the adult conversation happening around these election issues? Do you feel like there's an opportunity here for young people to make a difference with how all of these issues are being talked about?
I totally agree with that. To kind of touch on what Jacob was saying, you know, older people kind of, you know, do get set in their ways. And then following that, a lot of times, you know, how we're raised, you know, like if you were raised in a Republican family that's more conservative or whatever, you kind of feel like you have to stick with that. But as we get older and things start to emerge and evolutionize, you know, like you do have the right and you are able to figure out what you feel and what you believe in. And, you know, just hearing some of the adult conversations, it almost makes me always want to chime in and just hold on, just listen, you know. So, you know, so just, you know, now just stay open-minded and figure out what, you know, what's for you and, you know, what you feel in your heart. I just think that's always important.
Thank you. And just for the teachers, as we wrap up, what role do you guys see for mentors and educators in kind of helping guide young people through this opportunity? Because this is a great opportunity, right? These media makes are going to be widely seen on KQED and also the Letters to the Next President website and all of our social media channels. So there's a potential here for these videos to reach really tens of thousands of people across the country. So that's a big responsibility, and I think you guys play a crucial role. But if you could just articulate, you know, what you see your role as being.
I definitely want to thank KQED for setting this whole thing up, because you know, Jacob wouldn't be here if we on this Google Hangout. He wouldn't be here if you hadn't given him the opportunity. If we hadn't had the opportunity in the class. I just think, like I was saying earlier, you know, just giving students an opportunity to have all sorts of ways to express themselves and do it in a public way, I think is, in a lot of ways, is the definition of project-based learning. They get to say what they feel, and they get to get the voice out, and then they get responses back, and they get to understand that they can do that, and it's a real confidence-building opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you for jumping in.
I want to ditto that also. You know, one thing that I often tell my students is, if you don't remember anything from my class, but you can read a voter's pamphlet, then I'll feel like my class has been successful. That it's really important, and I'm so inspired to hear young people talking and being concerned. It's why I'm a teacher, and without those voices, I don't have to say without those voices what it looks like. So we really need them to be engaged and in a critical way, where they really do vet what's going on, what these people are really saying. My job is to help them get through the muck. And if I can teach them those skills, all the better. The idea of them having a public forum is really empowering. And I've said that many times. I don't think my students realized how many voices were out there when they started tweeting, and I want to continue to do that. And I think with young students like we have right now here, to keep us going and keep this project moving forward. Thank you, KQED.
Great, and I do have to wrap up. I just want to thank our partners at BAVC for helping us spearhead this first media make as part of Letters to the Next President. I want to encourage everybody who's watching and listening to sign up for Letters to the Next President if you have not already. The website is letters2president.org, and all the information about the Media Make can be accessed from Letters to the Next President. So go to the website, sign up. There's going to be a whole bunch more really fun Media Makes this spring, and then in the summer, we're going to put out the national call for multimedia letters from students around the country with a showcase site and a big social media campaign to get those videos out there too as multimedia. So these could be audio letters written. Stay tuned, sign up, get engaged, and thank you all so much for helping us kick this off. It's an enormous effort, and we're really thrilled to have all of you as our partners.
Thank you.